Hey, what's the matter, you?
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while you sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world. Acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Guidos!
That's a great intro to this one.
That's a
Great
tough. That's a,
intro.
it's like it hit some high notes on that one, huh? That's a tough
Oh,
song.
it does. I hope I hit him good enough.
All right. Well, this episode is about planned obsolescence. I'm going to start this real quick. Hold on. Let me share my screen.
Uh-oh. I cannot hear Joe.
Joe. Yeah, we lost you on that. Don't.
He's miming. So we can hear Christian. Christian can hear me. It sounds like Joe can hear us.
Yeah.
What do you guys do? Why do you have to dink with the settings every podcast?
That's all right. I can just cut it. I can cut this all out. It's nice.
Honestly, if it's too much work, don't bother. But if it's easy, then I'd say fine.
No, it is with that Adobe. Even though it's primitive, the Adobe. What the heck is it called? I don't know. It's a simple program, Adobe Express. It's not meant for like super like experts. It's meant for a more user friendly, and it's
nice.
It's real easy to cut out. They did a really good job with it.
Now it's on. So,
all right, Joe, now I can hear you. Cool. So what did you change?
Well, so even though my computer says that it's using the correct microphone for my webcam, apparently I need to hit the wheel and choose within this specific program also what microphone to use. I don't know, Mike, if you have ever done that.
Well, I did say to select it, but whatever your default one is, that's what I when I send you the link, you could change, like you can see in the link itself, it has all the variables, those are, I'm saying pick the default. So whatever you had selected as your default, that's
honestly,
what it was.
I don't ever do anything. I just click the link and the link says go into the room with a camera, and that's all I do.
It's supposed to choose for you.
Sabotage me. Christian definitely sabotaged me. He's gonna do that. I know. Wow, I can't believe the amount of snow you got. That's pretty cool.
It kept on going until about 1 around here. It was probably a good 8 inches. But we haven't gotten any.
I think we got about 3, maybe 3.
Brian and his family left. Mike, he's got 5 slides. Come on.
Hey, it shows a little bit more effort than some people.
So the question, there was a lot of debate, like in engineering circles and magazines and things of that nature about, is it ethical for an engineer to intentionally shorten the life of a useful object? That was just one of the sentences that I grabbed in planned obsolescence. So I'm just going to go over the slide, and we'll talk about it after each slide. This was just like a brief summary that ChatGPT came up with there's different ways and mechanisms they created for disposability. Obviously, it was to increase profits and make sure that they sold a lot of products. And in the beginning, they did that in the 20s to 40s by reducing the physical lifespan limits. Some examples would be like with the light bulb. I'm going to show some of these in the later slide. And like DuPont, when it made its first nylon stocking for women, the first version of it was like almost indestructible, and women loved it. But then they realized they wouldn't sell a lot of them, so they just made it weak. And then it got runs just like normal women's stockings, the runnings and it would break apart. And then in the 50s and 60s, they did psychological and aesthetic pressure to upgrade. So that's perceived obsolescence. So, always wanting the new item. They changed the design a little bit. And this became, one example they use is when the president of GM, Alfred P. Sloan, openly promoted annual model changes, not for mechanical improvements, but to make last year's car feel obsolete.
Right. We know, just so you know, remember, I think it's important to pause for a minute and really understand what we're talking about here.
Right.
We're saying that companies are purposefully making their products garbage so that you are forced to buy them more frequently.
Well, it's disposable, right? And it's
or cheaper or whatever.
Right, not garbage. I mean,
not garbage, but as cheap.
But they knew when it started in like the industrial, when they could really produce products quickly, they realized that at some point they'll run out of the people potentially who could buy anything. And if they made things last too long, then they wouldn't be able to sell any more products.
But let's just pause for 1 minute to think about that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It definitely is easier to exist in a sort of monopolistic environment. But the whole purpose of capitalism is that companies compete. So this strategy, if this is a bad strategy, it should fail on its own. It should fail because a competitor will go, oh, look, their product is garbage, or their product only lasts 3 years. I'm going to make a product that lasts 15
And then they've proven that they didn't do that. They colluded with the other companies and said, what do you guys think? We should limit it to it. So the next one on the next slide is about how the light bulb industry did that. They had a light bulb cartel, and they said, let's not make it more than 1,000 hours. Even at the time when they were discussing that, some of them had reached 2,500 hours. And then, they decided that was too much and they weren't going to sell enough. So later on, there was a court case. We'll talk about that later. But, there were other examples of even, because they were asking the engineers to specifically do it. And the engineers were morally thought, because back, a long time ago, the engineers thought that they should always produce the best product they're capable of.
Right, absolutely.
But that's not what they were telling them to do. They were saying that we can't, especially after the Depression, one guy even came up with the idea that it should be mandatory by the government to make it obsolete after a certain amount. You turn it back into the government in order to stimulate the economy back. I mean, it didn't get popular then, but there was a lot of that thought going around around that time. And it's not, I see your point, though. I see that in a competitive market, of course, so that could fail. But a lot of those people do communicate with each other, and they know.
No, I mean, there's certainly industry groups, and there is things. But Joe had his hand raised. I just want to say that at the end, I do think, because stuff like that, capitalism, that is the solution. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy anything you don't want. As well as we're free to. If there's really an opportunity, we're free to start our own company and say, well, I can do a better job. I do think there is ethical reasons, and there are examples like the tobacco industry and nicotine, et cetera, of people purposefully, in the case of the tobacco industry, of them adjusting the nicotine thing so that it's more addictive. But go ahead, Joe.
I think that that this could not be across the entire spectrum of disposable items. Obviously, there are different aspects of this that also need to be considered. One being like the razor. They make them for a penny and they sell them for $2.50. Yay. So they make a 10,000%. Now I'm exaggerating. So there's, an aspect of that it's like, okay, we didn't really make it as, the evolution of disposability, but somehow they have taken advantage of the situation to make us perceived to purchase something that they literally make it's like it's the largest increase, but we're not going to be able to do that with eggs. So there's obviously
Right.
aspects of this that they
Yeah.
can try to make. And then there's the other
More
side.
mechanical, and it's more electronics and mechanical
Well, and
things.
then there's the other side.
Like
No, because I
cars
can
and
see it in
things.
socks. Socks, they've decreased in price, and you've got these cheap paper thin ones. You have the right to purchase the quicker disposable ones.
Mhm.
They will last less, but I might not have the money for the ones that are going to last longer. So I purchase a cheap TV, knowing that I'm only going to I'm only going to get a certain amount of time out of it, and then I'll get another one. But I don't have the money to spend $3,000 to $5,000 on one that's going to outlast it. So there's other
Well, I
aspects.
mean, they're absolutely. I do think part of this is people want cheap products, right? So when you have the cheapest product, a lot of people don't care about how long it lasts. There is a market for what is the lowest cost product. So that's kind of in the mix somewhere. But I don't think that's really what Christian's getting at. I think what Christian's getting at here is collusion, which, by the way, besides the capitalism argument, collusion and price fixing is illegal. So it is already on the books that this is clearly in the realm of illegal behavior.
Yeah, but designing a lot of them also, you can design, like you're saying, you have the freedom not to buy their product. But what they'll do is they'll design it, and it could be even like software updates or whatever it is. They figure a way to make you purchase another one. That's the whole goal. Obviously, they're not gonna, and they've over decades and decades convinced people that they always want the latest and the newest. I mean, it's not hard to convince. You're showing
Well, companies also fight against disruption, right? Any type of disruption to the gravy train is going to be fought against.
Right.
But there has been disruption. I mean, almost lots of industries have been disrupted by the internet. Lots of industries are folding. In fact, people have tried this. Take Microsoft for an example. Microsoft tried to go to a yearly rollout of their operating system. Why did it fail? I know exactly why it failed. Linux. In other words, in their particular case, they had strong alternatives where people were like, no, I'm not buying your junk every year. Whether it was Apple or whether it was Linux, they said, no, I'm not doing it.
All right, so let me get back to the slide, because it's just a summary thing we can discuss after. They're just saying that these were techniques that they used to improve sales. That was, and some of it was illegal and some of it was immoral, but wasn't illegal. But and then it depends on your point of view. Some of it is it's up to how you feel about it. But anyway, continuing on, in the 70s and 80s, some of the techniques that they used was suppression. TVs, stereos, and VCRs shifted from being modular repair design to sealed and disposable assemblies.
Can I add a point on this repair stuff suppression? John Deere just lost a case on the whole do not repair thing. And I think Apple definitely in the last 5 years also lost the do not repair case, where they were trying to do what you're talking about here, suppress people from repairing it themselves.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, they use glue. They make it so difficult. When we try to repair iMacs and stuff, it's nearly impossible. I mean, it's all put together by the thinnest materials, and it snaps and breaks with plastic parts, and it's glued together. There's nothing. They use custom type of screwdrivers. It's all like 6-pointed ones or 8-pointed ones. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've had Macs forever. And Apple, you're right. Apple's been really bad about this. They do not want you touching their equipment, which is not their equipment. Obviously, we buy it. So at that point, once you buy it, you should own it, and own it should give you the right to repair it.
Yeah. And then
I've experienced all three of these in some degree. So right now, 20s and 40s, 50s, 70s, 80s, that's all truth. I mean, I've experienced all this crap.
Yeah.
And let's use a T2058 to take the nut off, and then you violate the damn. You're not allowed to take it out, or you've violated the warranty.
You void the warranty in that.
Freaking ridiculous.
And then they use ecosystem control. I guess IBM was a good example of using proprietary hardware and software, created forced expensive upgrades. I mean, I guess Apple does that too. I mean, once you're in that ecosystem and you buy those apps and stuff, it's hard to get away from that. And then they have to 2000s to today, software throttling, code that limits the hardware, so they in one of the examples they released software that reduced the CPU and made it slow. But anyway, so they use these things to avoid warranty replacements, push upgrades, and reduce support costs. DRM is digital rights management. Ownership quietly turns into a license that can be revoked. Subscriptions, you stop paying and the product stops working.
I think this last one is important to pause on. Subscription, life as a subscription. I mean, you know, take streaming services. Everybody for everything is pushing subscriptions. Healthcare on subscription. This is I've heard this called, you know, a society that where you basically don't own anything, and you're supposed to be happy about that. Don't own anything and be happy. Because everything's on. I mean, look at the insurance industry, right? Subscription for every type of thing. Oh, subscription so you can have insurance for your car repair, for a home repair, obviously health insurance, obviously car insurance, obviously home insurance. I mean, everything's now turning into a subscription lifestyle.
I have one other ad there that I ran into. I don't know if it's a little side note, but those flexible spending accounts, just for all the people out there that might be watching, if you have 500 left, if anything over 500, and we take your money, what planet are we living on? That we can't roll over more than 500 to the next year. If you got 650, we steal $150 from you. I mean, are we kidding? Like, you know, when you feel like grabbing somebody, but there's nobody to grab. But that, I don't get it, guys.
Well, it's funny your sentiment there. There's nobody to grab. In my favorite book, The Grapes of Wrath, remember when the farmer is there and the tractor is coming through. So these were all, they didn't own the farms. These were all, what's the word they use? Sharecroppers. And they're in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl and all these sharecroppers. And they all went bankrupt. So they were selling the farms to these big conglomerates. And the tractor's coming through to bulldoze the shacks on the land. And the farmer's like, he's got a shotgun out, and he's got the guy, he's like, I'll shoot you if you. He's like, shoot me. He's like, I'm just earning a paycheck like you are, buddy. He's like, you shoot me, they're gonna send somebody tomorrow. The bank's gonna send somebody. He's like, who the bank on? I'll shoot them. He's like, wait a minute, the bank, they're controlled by New York. You can't shoot the guys at the bank. They're just controlled by somebody else. And he's like, well, who do I shoot? And he's like, no, man, there's nobody to shoot. It's the machine. It's the monster. It's the money-eating monster.
Wow. That's it.
So, Joe, who do you shoot, man? Who do you shoot?
Do you remember that? Do you remember that book, Chris? The Grapes of Wrath?
Not really. I mean, I think we had to do it, but I don't really.
Fast-paced book. Guy's at the end of the day has the baby dead in his hands on the side of a river. You will not die. You will be remembered. Throws the baby down a river.
Wow.
Die somewhere.
Oh no, it's obviously John Steinbeck. He's my favorite American author. He's my favorite. He's my favorite author. And Grapes of Wrath is well worth reading. It's
really short. It's only like an hour listen. Sorry, Chris. Let's stay focused, dudes. Focus.
It's all right.
I like the page turn. I don't know how you do that with the page
that
turn.
was slick. Woo!
This is one of the earliest examples that they have that where it's, I guess, GE, Philips, and Osram, they made the Phoebus cartel. And at that point, you know, there were already some that were up to 2,500 hours, but they said no, and then they would penalize them and send them bills, which they all have the records. They all have the records kept of, you know, and they would test each manufacturer's bulb to make sure that it was compliant with their. They also came out with a specific type of filament and stuff, so that they would follow their rules And then it took a long time, but then they got busted for the Sherman Antitrust Act.
You know, it's interesting, and you know, me and Dad have had this argument all so long because Dad's a big conspiracy guy, and obviously I believe this is absolutely true. But what is it? What does it mean? It's no different than what they said with the Nazis, that there was millions of good Germans who stood by and did nothing while the atrocities were occurring. My point being is almost all this stuff comes to who has the courage. Look at UFC. With one guy, one corrupt assemblyman in New York held the UFC at bay. When everybody wanted him in New York, he held them at bay for, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, some ridiculous amount of time because one corrupt bastard.
Wow. Corruption
is, I mean, obviously it's like it's like the original sin or one of the original sins, right? The temptation of power. But it takes somebody to do the right thing. Like I said, this stuff is illegal. If you're not reporting it, you're wrong. You're part of the problem. You're freaking evil.
And then the picture on the bottom, that's a light bulb that's still, it's like 120 years old. This was before the cartel got in. This guy designed a light bulb that never made it into mass production, and it burns in a fire department since 1901, and it's still burning today. You can go to a website and see it. It's just to show you that how they could have made something so better. I mean, nowadays they make the LED lights, so they've obviously gotten rid of this type of thing, but it went for a long time. They said even into like the 80s and 90s, it was still going on. This is another one. This is about, I'm just giving you a couple examples of what they, disposable electronics, sealed battery, short lifespan, replaceable equals. This was with the iPod.
Right.
So they wanted you to spend $99 to get the battery fixed. You couldn't fix it yourself. And it was basically the price of a new one. And then they had a class action where they lost, I guess they had the 2 million users. They ended up extending the warranty.
They do sealed batteries on cars now, where you used to be able to open them up and refill the.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't even think. I guess you couldn't really even take this one out, or at least it was really difficult.
I had one of those. I freaking love my iPod.
Oh, Mike, I thought you said you have one of those. You got rid of it.
I'm pretty sure I got rid of it. I still have some of my old. I wish I kept my original 1984 Mac. I still have one of my old Macs, but I did get rid of the original one, which was so stupid. I probably could have sold it on eBay for a good amount of cash.
I just find it interesting also how we have these thought patterns that we fall into, because that is true. On the bottom it says that the pattern we still live with today is that if the battery dies, the product dies. So, I mean, a lot of people do think that
look at these, right?
Throw out shit like crazy.
I mean, what do you do? I mean, people, these were being sold to basically replace them almost every year, and not for $99, more than $1,000, right?
I think the design, if we held the companies more liable in that they had to clean up or at least recycle or do something with their products in some way, they were liable or responsible for them, they would change the design of these things. They'd make them all repairable. You know what I mean? Because
but like you said, they stopped giving software updates after 2 to 4 years on your phone, and now you're vulnerable to attack, so you're forced to upgrade your phone. Buy a new phone. So I have a phone in there. It's like a 2021. It's like nothing was wrong with it. I had to step up to the 2024, and oh my gosh, I'm almost 2 years into it. I better start looking, because another year of. Come on. There's nothing wrong with my phone in there. It's sitting in I don't even know what to do with it. It's like ridiculous.
Millions of tons of electronic waste that we ship to other countries.
Right.
Well,
recycling's another good topic we should talk about, because that's kind of a whole joke in and of itself. we say we recycle, but we actually only recycle a very small percentage of the stuff.
Yes, that's going to be mine next week, Mike. So please don't try to discuss it right now. Thank you. No,
I'm
but
next week we're gonna do vitamins.
okay, that's an interesting one too. I'd like to hear that. Christian, how does China play a role in this? Where there's like 70 to 80% of the market that's sold by Chinese products. Where the hell does that come in? Are they like, oh, is it the perception that they're also doing these things that
I think definitely. I think it's all about, it's about making money. It's a money maker. You want people to constantly be buying your products. So it doesn't have to be, it's not outright illegal. You could put plastic parts instead of metal part. You could do software updates because people have come to accept that. We've just in our head, like, we said, well, who wants a phone after 4 years? A phone is junk after 4 years. In our head, we've already made that decision. They don't have to convince us anymore. We've already been sold a lie. Doesn't matter.
Well, there's something to be said about it too. Not only that, there is a little bit of it's like implicit collusion. I'll give an example with microwaves. And actually, I have a printer right now that's on the fritz. So I'm in this position with the printer. But separate issue, Buddy Belden, my father-in-law, who's now deceased. Buddy was a great guy, right? And he was an electronics repair guy. He had repaired TVs, microwaves, etc. Even on TVs, both TVs and microwaves hit a point where people would not pay to get them repaired. Take a microwave. When you could buy a new microwave for $100, no one will pay to get them repaired. It's that simple. So once they hit a certain price point, probably like you said, with plastics or whatever, but it becomes a throwaway item. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you got 2 or 3 years out of it or 5 years out of it, you should be happy. And it only costs $100 to replace it.
I don't even care if it's 500. I did that with I do it with all my products. And they say, buy the warranty for $250. The thing's $500.
But if the company was responsible for cleaning up that mess, they would probably make it modular or some way, or cheaper to repair than they'd figure out a way to not waste that money. If they had to pay money to clean up, because where does it all go? Where do all the printers go? Where do all the washing machines and all the other, where is it? I mean, they don't tell us that. I mean, it's probably in landfills or under, who the hell knows where they put these things.
Well, but here's a problem with that. I think we have issues with recycling. And part of the issue with recycling is it's still cheaper to produce a new one than to recycle.
But
And
that's because how they manufacture it, though, right? I mean,
well, no, not only that. In other words, I'll give you an example. Take plastics. The way they recycle plastics, from what I've seen, and I am definitely not an expert, but in other words, they'll just throw all the plastics together in these big bins. They wash them, they grind them up, but they're not pure plastics. You now have sort of a conglomerate or amalgamation of a bunch of plastics,
right?
Because their sorting only went so far. So you then have these like plastic pellets that you can sell, and they put them into some products that don't care. But again, the bottom line from a company is going to be, how much does it cost for new plastic versus how much does it cost for the recycled stuff? And that's all they're going to ask.
Yeah. Maybe they could make it biodegradable, though. Maybe they didn't go down those avenues because they never had to. Like maybe there's some other material they can use, or some other. They would have invented it if it came down to a cost that they reduce their profits. They'd figure a way, but we don't care. It's just we just say, yeah, you're off the hook. You can create as much as you want. We don't care. The landfills run forever.
Right. Yeah. Not my problem. Right. They just go, not my problem. It's an interesting question, right? It's an interesting question. There's
an interesting documentary on sorry, Joe, on Netflix. There's an interesting documentary on Netflix called Buy Now, and it's all about Amazon and some other companies, about just how much freaking boxes and pollution, and the level that is mind-boggling. of like how much people purchase stuff, and it's all, we're just a consumer society, it's
Right.
really, it's disturbing of the level of, they're saying that it's at such a high level that we ship it all over the world and dump it on these other countries, and it's crazy.
What is the United States consumption in compared to the world?
We are far and above everybody else. I do think it's an interesting concept, right, Christian? Why are we such a society of consumers? I think we have been sold on. You want to be happy? Buy the hottest product. You want to drive happy? Buy a Lamborghini. You want to live happy? Buy a McMansion. You know,
Mm.
and
You're not a real man unless you have, this cologne or this car or this thing, and it's we buy, psychologically we buy into those
and
stereotypes.
even buying quote unquote experiences, right? You haven't lived until you have a yacht or some BS like that. So I do think part of the problem is we were sold on a consumerism ethic, which is really shouldn't be the most important thing in your life.
So
Printers,
this
though,
is
this is interesting because they even have chips. Joe, did I just interrupt you? I'm sorry.
no, go right ahead. I was going to say print is interesting.
Because there was in that movie, there's a chip that where the it would just say error, doesn't work anymore, and the guy he took it to these stores and said, "Can you fix my printer?" And they're like, "Well, this error means that it's basically just garbage." But then the guy went on a site and cleared the error. He got like a different driver and cleared the on the printer, and it just started working. So it was total bullshit. It was like they just made up this error and they put a chip with the thing. Once it got to a certain page count, the whole machine just stopped working. But
Wow.
in this particular slide, they're talking about ink, which costs, I mean, a fortune. It's more than the device itself a lot of times. But they got caught when they were, oh boy, that's my school was calling me. But anyway, they got caught where the counter would hit the number and the printer declares the cartridge empty even when there's 20 to 50% usable ink remaining.
Wow.
So they had to pay $45 in e-coupons per customer for falsely indicating cartridges were empty. Yeah, that's pretty shady. I mean, because those things that talk about a huge amount of waste.
That is disgusting.
But what year was this? Because nowadays there's too many people looking at this.
2006 it says right there.
Yeah. It's like murderers were a lot safer when we didn't have all the damn cameras. Like they had no real forensics and there was no cameras everywhere. And it's like, not that comparing this to murder.
Well, what typically happens, like in a case like this, is somebody gets pissed off and somebody says, I'm not taking this, and does the research and sleuths it out and says, look at this. This is ridiculous. And then or a whistleblower. That's really the two ways these kind of people get caught. Most of the time, it's a whistleblower. Somebody has a case of conscience, and somebody says, "I can't live with myself if I don't blow the whistle on this."
We've tried to take apart some of these printers, and it's literally like origami. Like they are impossible to fix, these things, man. There's so many damn parts and so many things. And then the ink, a lot of times we say shake the thing. It says it's empty, and you shake it, and you get a lot more pages that it is.
Right.
A lot of people think that is a cartel also, like between HP and Epson and all those things. I mean, they were just making so much money.
You're right. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, printers are dying. People are printing a lot less, right? Because they only print now when you have to. You don't even need to print stuff to sign anymore, thank goodness, right? So they will get disrupted. I mean, their days are numbered as we go more towards digital signatures, et cetera, people are already printing less and less, which I think is a good thing. But let's talk briefly about the model, because this model is identical to the razor blade thing that Joe was talking about. The razor is cheap because you're making all your money on the razor blades. In this case, the printer is dirt cheap because you make all your money off the ink.
Yep.
And that's what they do. That's their model.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's not forget that with a brother like Mike, sleuth, a person who investigates crimes and as like a detective. definition.
It is my job to bring culture like Grapes of Wrath and sleuthing. You know, we can't all be Neanderthals here.
Improve the vocabulary.
Or a troglodyte.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Software that makes the phone age. So they did. iPhone got caught with this. Apple performance secretly reduced. Updates created a slowdown. The user blamed the hardware. So people experienced phones becoming sluggish overnight and naturally assumed my phone is old and I need a new one. Resulted in a $500 million U.S. class action settlement in 2020. Yeah, so
and some of it is, I do think they also train their help support staff to give you these BS answers. Just recently, I called about the Coinbase app on my phone because the Coinbase app suddenly locked up for no reason. And the idiot support person said, "Oh, that's your model of phone. Sorry, but use a new device." I'm like, that's your answer? I should buy a new phone because your app is garbage? And of course, I just ended up uninstalling and reinstalling, and then it worked again. I'm like, wow, your support.
I also wonder about these things here, like 500 million. You know, if we make 2.5 billion, and so we have to 5 years, 10 years from now, when the class action suit gets settled, pay 500 million. What do I get? I still am 2 million. I'm 2 billion up. I mean, you just wonder if they're literally doing the math and saying, if I make $1 billion and we lose 500 million, who cares? We're still 500 million up. So, oh yeah, we made a mistake, but I still won. I mean, I wish they said, as a result of this, by doing this, they made 2 billion. And so the 500 million class suit, who cares? I mean, we don't know how much they made off of doing this because, again, it was effective, even if it lingered. I mean, I didn't know the class action went through. I just thought my phone was old and I needed a new one. So I didn't listen to actually hear that there was a class action and that these SOBs really did this. And so your mind's already impacted by, I thought you have to be careful. It might be too much on your phone. It's slowing down. Oh no, it doesn't have enough storage. It's not quick enough. Let's get a new one. I mean, I'm right there. See, I live under a rock. I poke my head out every now and then like this. And then Mike laughs at me, steps on the rock. He steps on the rock. And I gotta poke my head out. He's like, no. And no, but it's so true. I just don't have time. I don't have time to be watching all this. And so it goes by and you're not aware of this.
I do think, though, part of the problem is, and I'm guilty of this in terms of these damn phones, because this device to me is starting to become not optional anymore, where I am willingly upgrading, I am willingly store all these crazy number of photos and videos, and when I run out of space, I buy more space or I buy a bigger phone, because it's so damn useful to me that I bought in. But if I was on a fixed income, I think that would change. And so part of this is kind of where I was getting at in terms of a subscription lifestyle. At what point do you say, so on one hand, there's benefits to just buying in. It's like, take the Soma, buy in, shut up and be happy, or go counterculture, and try to own what you have, repair it yourself, don't be a slave, and live free or die. Right. It's a choice. It's an interesting choice.
It seems also that the Europeans are more, they're more into the repair thing and they're more into the security thing. They take that stuff very seriously with their electronics, because there are some phones that are modular and laptops and things they're not as popular, obviously, because they're a little bit more expensive, but it's catching on. I mean, the being able to upgrade and being able to fix your own stuff,
right?
But it's not going to happen with the big boys, because they know that they would lose too much money.
I also want to know what the hell we're signing. Everything. Here's a subscription, 16 pages. Just accept the clause, which is like, I wonder what we're signing away. My firstborn. Knock, knock, knock. Yes, you accepted the subscription, but at the very bottom it says your firstborn is being taken away.
Black Mirror's got all sorts of good shows relating to this, right? Unintended consequences from our technological advancements, right?
I just ever wonder, like, who reads that stuff and like, what the hell are we signing away? So when I take a dump, they know I'm taking a dump now. It's like, you gave us the permission.
This is just more for fun. I did it at the end. I did, like for me, because like I like Star Trek, and I think that if civilization was to move to that where we were exploring the universe, this type of thinking would need to go away. You wouldn't want to have any obsolescence. You don't get a civilization that explores the universe by designing its tools to expire. You get there by aligning incentives with human growth, curiosity, mastery, durability, and shared knowledge. We don't need to invent the warp drive first. We need to stop designing light bulbs, phones, software, and AI as if short-term profits is the final destination, because you don't reach the stars by building things to break. You reach them by building things to last.
Nice.
Hey, you like Star Trek, you said?
Yeah, I like Star Trek.
Huh.
What do you mean, huh? We were talking about that because when you started watching the what's it called? On the series, you were watching the latest one. I haven't caught up to yet, but I watched Picard, and I watched all the old one and the new one, Next Generation. I watched.
Did you watch Deep Space Nine?
That was one of the only ones, but only because it looks so damn crappy. It looks old, but I should watch that one. You said it was good.
And what about the first one with the first Star Trek before Star Trek?
Yeah, with the hot Spock chick.
Yeah, have you seen that one?
I did see that one.
That's good, because right from the beginning you see the Vulcans and they are holding back the entire planet from getting into space for like 200 years. Right. And it gets, right from the get-go, they don't want us to go into space.
No, it's an interesting, they don't feel we're evolved enough. It's an interesting question. And I actually think you're right. I mean, when you think about any military equipment or any spacefaring equipment, obviously related to NASA, redundancy and duplication is always a big deal. You never trust a single system. You always have to build in redundancy, but you also have to build in quality tests on your first system, because you don't want to, just rely on one backup system, because what if that one fails too? So you can't build junk. So I do think, society relies on a certain amount of reliability, and there are other societies that do it a lot better than we do. They say in Japan, everything runs on time. It's just a whole nother level of precision that we don't do. We're kind of very sloppy,
Very interesting. Yeah. So interesting.
All right.
All right.
Good one, Christian.
Wait, is this like Generation X? Is this Generation X?
Generation
X. Arrivederci.